Okay, I don't know if this is working or not. So, oh, it looks like I need to turn my phone. Let me look up really quick if I can do this. See if it will do it for me or if I have to do it. I'm not technical at all. So I'm just seeing if this shows up. Oh, it is showing me sideways. Okay, I'm going to turn this and hopefully it's the right direction. I might have to start over. Oh, it's working. I have to start over. Okay. This is how it's going to be, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to quickly share this to my Facebook fan page, and then we will start our live read in just a couple minutes. I don't know why. I'm like sweaty. I don't know why. I'm like super, not really nervous, but maybe I am. Okay. So I'm just sharing this to fans of H.B. Moore. I'm live right now reading chapter 3 of Hitching. And I swear I keep spelling picture wrong because it's just one of those words that there's 3 ways to spell it right. Okay, thanks, Mara. Is that how you say your name? Mara, I'm hoping that's the right way. Sometimes you don't know. Anyway. So I have some things to show you because I went digging in boxes this morning. Well, first of all, this is my Minnesota Twins hat. Well, it's my husband's, and it doesn't have the little ponytail thing in the back, so it's not something I would normally wear, but I'm wearing it today. And I've never been to a professional baseball game except for a couple minor league games in Utah, the Bees or something. Anyway, but I was in Minnesota in December, and we drove past the Twins stadium a few times, and it was really cool. I just got to see the outside of it at night. So, but my son used to play baseball in junior high and high school, and so I am showing you his stuff that looked apparently I look really bad in bright yellow, and not that I'm super vain, but there's just some things I can't do. So this is his Pirates jersey. He was so freaking cute. And also it's mesh. So yellow and mesh do not look good on me. And this is his, he played Super League, and this is Lehigh for Lehigh Lightning. And he was number 9. And I'm sure that's backwards for you all, so it probably looks like a G. But when I was texting my son when I was writing Kissing on Third, which is the last book that comes out in the series. It comes out is number 6, and I was asking him about some things, and he's like, well, what are you writing? I said, it's a baseball romance. He's like, make me the character, and his name is Kalen, and I said, well, that would just be really weird because you don't want your mom writing about a romance hero that has her son's name. So he is a character in the book, but he's not the main romance character. So anyway, so oh yeah. And then this is like super sentimental for the mom. This was his glove, and he played first base and outfield, and he did a little bit of pitching. He didn't really pitch early enough, so those of you who are sports mom, you know, you have to get those kids playing a certain position when they're like 8 years old. So he started pitching when he was like 12 or 13, which is kind of late in the game. But I love this. I played softball a little bit, and now if I tried it, I'd probably throw out my arm or my shoulder or my elbow like in the first 2 throws. So I'm not in shape like I used to be. So we are going to start looking at your comments here. Anyway, hi everybody. It's great to see you. Hi Laurie, Mackie, and Sophia. And I saw Mara here. And anyway, so we will get started. So this is obviously Hitching the Picture, and the first two chapters, the first one is read by Rebecca Connolly, which you can find in our video link on this Facebook page, and the second one was read by Sophia Summers. You can also find that in the video link. And then Rebecca Connolly came back last night and she sang the Belltown fight song, which is freaking hilarious because at the beginning of her video she said, oh, I think I might just sing it. Oh wait, I should probably look at the words. Like, she wrote it and she knows the words, and she put together like this little band music background. That is so not me. So I love it when I'm working with authors that are talented in way more ways than I will ever be. So here we go. We're gonna do chapter 3. And first of all, I am not a narrator, and I'm a good reader silently to myself, and I read to my kids when they're little, but I'm not probably the most articulate person, so forgive me for any stumbles. I'll try not to read too fast. That's my goal, and hopefully it'll be interesting. And of course, Rebecca writes 15-page chapters, so just be warned. We will get through this together. We will be heroes and champs together. Okay, so chapter 3, we're in Erica's point of view, who is a love interest of Sawyer Bennett. And that should last us until March, I think. The summer exhibit is still being considered, but I will send out a memo to all when the board has decided. Erica nodded absently, not really listening, but making notes on her tablet all the same. She was still mulling over the change in her life that had been reconnecting with Sawyer Bennett, sort of. If seeing him on campus would count as reconnecting, it certainly felt like reconnecting. But that could just be her wishful thinking, which was a stunning idea. She actually wanted to reconnect with him badly. Who would have thought? She shook herself, tuning into the meeting briefly, relieved that, as far as she could tell, everything was the same as it had been the last time she talked with her boss. It wasn't unusual for her boss to change her mind over the course of 24 hours, or for Erica to suddenly discover changes in a staff meeting, but there was something rather refreshing about actually knowing what was going on. What a concept. So just a pause here. I love how Rebecca just adds in these internal thoughts. They're awesome. A hand rose down at the opposite end of the table, and Erica bit back a groan. Yes, Jackson, Angela said with a careful expression, gesturing at him with her pen. Remind me what the summer's exhibit is, he replied, looking somehow smug and confused at the same time. I've only just returned from my time at the British Museum, you know, and there has just been so much going on. Erica closed her eyes briefly to save herself from being seen to roll them, and she suspected she was not alone. Jackson had been sent on assignment to the British Museum for a month, much to the envy of all the rest, and he never failed to remind anyone he could that he had spent some time there, learning from the best and improving his networking contacts. Angela had privately confided that she had sent Jackson away for some peace and quiet, and for the sake of her sanity. Not that the British Museum had actually requested one of her staff for anything. Still, he was an excellent anthropologist when he wanted to be. Native American heritage, Angela informed him, absently tapping her pen into her palm. We're in final decisions with several other museums also doing similar exhibits, and we're hoping to tie them all together in a series of sorts, something that will help each museum as well as increase awareness and appreciation. Another hand rose, and this one much more appreciated. Kaylee swiveled from side to side in her chair, as she usually did when she was thinking. Shouldn't we touch base with one of the more culturally focused museums? Phoenix, I think. I know, they do an incredible job with theirs. Which brings me to my next point, Angela agreed with a nod. We're sending an envoy to the Arizona Museum of Cultural Arts for just that. Someone to ensure that our exhibits are accurate and appropriate, and to bring about more opportunity for future projects, and maybe even to get some of their artifacts on loan if we butter them up enough. A round of good-natured chuckling went around the table, and Erica shook her head, switching her tablet over to email for the time being. She'd only just finished managing a display on the history of logging and lumber mills, teaming up with several museums in Canada. There was no way she'd be considered for the Arizona trip. She was looking forward to a break, actually. Between being back and forth to Canada and the trip back home, she'd been living out of a suitcase for far too long, and her plants were more than halfway dead from her neglect. Okay, I can relate to that. Emails from shoe stores about sales, from Belltown U's alumni chapter asking for a donation, from a few restaurants warning her that her perks were about to expire. She scrolled through them, deleting most without reading. Junk mail took up at least a third of her inbox, sad to say. So we'll be sending Erica Moore as our envoy and exhibit ambassador. Her name registered in her ears, but it took a moment for her mind to catch up, though her eyes had stopped focusing on her screen immediately. She looked up at her boss, her cheeks flaming as she reached instinctively to being called, as she reacted instinctively to being called on while not paying attention. What? Angela smiled and a few others laughed at her. We're sending you to Phoenix, Erica. Numbers were up after your work on the winter exhibit, so the board was unanimous in sending you. You wouldn't mind spending a few weeks in warmer climate, would you? Erica grinned, shaking her head. No, ma'am, I would not. When do I leave? I'll email you the details. Angela nodded in approval, then cleared her throat. All right, moving on. Claire, what do you have for the summer's children's program? Erica let the conversation around her go on without really paying attention to it. She kept a smile on her face, but her mind spun with the information she had just received. Arizona for a few weeks at least. She wasn't opposed to heading out there, especially when it had been so cold this past winter, but she was exhausted. She was only an assistant curator, not even one of the full curators, and she was being sent out again. On the plus side, being off-site meant she could devote more of her time to her online courses. There was a certain degree of freedom in being away from her official place of employment, and more often than not, she was able to sightsee and relax while she was there, or in this case, teach. It was strange, but her career was beginning to take her places, some of which were new and exciting, and yet all she really wanted to do was focus on all those online courses and teaching. She'd give anything to run the summer children's program instead of flying here and there to collect and oversee the research. She'd hoped that her work on the Canada projects would give her that opportunity, but now it seemed she was doing such a good job in her current position that they were going to give her more responsibilities in that position instead of giving her freedom to maneuver. Would it be too much to ask for time to reconsider her trip and for her to go back to Belltown for a weekend? She suddenly wanted to sit down with her mother across their worn kitchen table with a mug of cocoa and some molasses crinkles while they discuss important things late at night. Okay, what are molasses crinkles? I have no idea, but I think I need some after this reading. I'm still sweating. But she'd just come back from Belltown, and she highly doubted that they would give her another chance to jet off like that. It was already halfway into February. Oh, good timing. And the pieces and displays for their summer exhibit needed to be set in stone as soon as possible. Erica sighed very softly to herself and returned her attention to her tablet. She closed out of her email and opened her notes again, this time going to the notes from the teaching seminar in Belltown. A wave of nostalgia hit her, and she found herself smiling without any trouble. It had been amazing to be back on campus, especially with all the excitement over the basketball team. The classes of the seminar had let out early to allow attendees to go to the game if they wanted to, and Erica would have given anything to be able to. There would have been something so magical about being back in Schubert Arena and hearing the Timberline section and the band, to say nothing about seeing the six-pack to be honored. And Sawyer. She had so many conflicting emotions about Sawyer, about seeing him on campus and about not joining him and the guys at Mama Sal's for pizza. She hadn't lied to him in any way. It had been really good to see him. Their relationship had always been one she looked on with fondness, the memories making her laugh more often than not. They'd been inseparable, or they would have been, had his schedule permitted it. Baseball was first in his life, and she had known that. She hadn't expected him to break up with her over baseball, but there wasn't anything she could do about that now. It had been a straightforward breakup just before his senior season had really started, and the most uncomplicated breakup of her entire life. His regret had been clear, and his reluctance gave her hope, even though she knew how determined he was, how determined he'd always been. There's a key to Sawyer's character. If there was one thing she could say she knew full well about Sawyer Bennett, it was that when he set his mind to something, he absolutely would follow through to the end, even if something or someone stood in his way. At that time, it had been Erica standing in his way, or so he claimed. She'd never wanted him to be faced with a choice of her or the sport he adored, and she'd never given him an ultimatum. She loved him just as he was, head case and baseball and all, but apparently he could not have more than one love in his life. That's like a tongue twister. And that was that. Somehow they'd remain friends, though their time together had decreased in frequency as the rest of the semester went on. When graduation had come, he hadn't been there, and it was only after the draft and the first documentary about the six-pack that she learned he'd never obtained his degree. He moved away to start his career, and so did she. She hadn't seen him since college, until the other day. He looked good. He looked really, really good. and he'd hugged her really tight. "Don't you dare," her saner side warned. "Don't go there." She closed out of the seminar notes and went back to her emails, glancing up at the projector first to make sure she really wasn't missing anything in this meeting. Scrolling through her inbox again, she found a message that wasn't junk at all, and her lungs cramped in an awkward way at seeing it. It was from Sawyer Bennett, according to the email, though she supposed an assistant could have sent it if he had one, but the subject line read, "Hey Teach," which an assistant probably wouldn't have done unless under instructions, which would be weird. She opened the email, her emotions going off in 12 different directions, and carefully read each word. "Hi Teach. It was insanely good to see you on campus. All we needed was a stack of your pancakes and it would have been old times. The guys all say hi and Grizz wants to give you a bear hug, so guard your ribs if you see him. The game was awesome, right? Can't believe we beat Franklin. What a night. So I'm not going to be in Ohio for a while, and I didn't want you to think I wasn't calling on purpose. We're headed out to Arizona for preseason training and games." Got that, Arizona. We play in the Cactus League if you follow any of that. Should be good. I'll get to play Grizz and Rabbit while we're down there. I lost your number when my phone busted some time back, but Rachel still had emails going back years. Of course, I had to tell her I saw you, and my sister turned into a detective. I'm sorry in advance if she gets to you. Call me if you need. Then she puts the number. Well, I'm gonna totally leave out because that's like a spoiler, right? Don't give that out, or I'll call up Dr. Barnes and tell him what really happened to your geology project. Skeeter. It would likely earn her some curious looks, but she grinned down at her tablet without shame. Arizona? Right when she was going to Arizona? Granted, it was a huge state, so there is still the possibility that they would be ages apart from each other. But there is no reason she couldn't drive down to a game or two while she was there, if he wanted. He had said she could go to the games in Ohio. Why should Arizona be any different? She closed her tablet and drummed her fingers on the table, pretending to add attentiveness for a minute, then pulled out her phone, typing in the number she had somehow already memorized. "Hey Sawyer, it's Erica. Guess what?" And then there's a scene break, and things will start to get really good, so hang in there. She was in love with her newly rented Arizona apartment. It was larger than her place in Albany and had way more amenities, not to mention it was perfectly located, fully furnished, and right across the street from a Mexican restaurant she was dying to try. I think Erica's like me, like totally like me. The museum had really set her up well this time. She might have to reconsider wanting to go into teaching instead of traveling. She'd been in Arizona 3 days, and she had finally adjusted to the time change, though she still had some unpacking to do. The open-ended nature of her trip had her a little nervous, considering she wasn't the one who had to pay for the airfare, or rent for that matter. She wasn't going to voice her concerns. Her colleagues in Arizona were welcoming and warm, and they had given her a full tour of the museum and full access to anything she wanted. The exhibits were fascinating and pristine, and she had gone through the entire place as a visitor first, then as a curator, taking notes as she went. It had been one of her favorite museum visits to date, and she was actually excited to get started. The meetings didn't start until tomorrow, though, and even then, things were going to be so laid back that she was destined to have more free time than she had thought. What to do with that? Her mom wanted her to explore and send pictures and videos. Meg wanted her to get them all some awesome cultural souvenirs, though she had yet to actually tell Erica what exactly she wanted. Bryant, her brother, wanted to learn how to make what he called legit Mexican food, which was laughable, and Erica was the worst cook in the family. She would certainly find out which restaurants were the best, but she wouldn't be making anything at all, especially considering she had been approved as an adjunct professor for Belltown, and her first classes started next week. Classes, as in plural. She had been given multiple classes right off the bat. There had been a pretty epic dance party when she'd received that email. I could totally see Rebecca in that line. I could see her doing an epic dance party, totally. Her other classes she had been teaching here and there had wrapped up, so she had been able to apply for multiple classes from Belltown U, but she hadn't thought she'd get them all. Getting lessons prepped had been exciting and exhilarating, and she couldn't wait for things to start, though she knew full well that most of the students taking her classes weren't exactly going to be the dedicated sort. Some would be, of course, but her classes were fairly basic, which generally meant that students were only filling requirements. Hard to be enthusiastic about a forced course. She didn't mind so much. She was sure she made the class entertaining enough to avoid being drudgery and useful enough to not be a waste of time. It was a fine line, and one she learned to maneuver well as a tutor in her undergraduate days. The six-pack had quite a hand in tutoring her in that regard. Her teaching style would never have developed as it had if she'd had a different group of students, and for that alone, she would be grateful. The friendship she'd forged with them had been icing on the cake. She missed that even now, but lines were drawn in the breakup, and out of necessity, the six-pack had stuck together, as they should have done. Still stung a bit, though. No relationship she'd had since had meant as much as that one. No one else was Sawyer. But even that relationship had ended, so she wasn't sure what that meant for her. Her phone buzzed, bringing her out of her memories, and she reached for it, glancing at the screen briefly. Sawyer. Seriously? She said to herself, suddenly needing to swallow hard. She pushed the answer button and brought the shaking phone to her ear. Hello? Hey, Sawyer responded brightly. You here? Erica smiled and looked up at her ceiling. Where's here? She heard him laugh once. The Grand Canyon State, Teach. Glorious, sunny, non-humid, warm Arizona. She mused, still smiling. Deserty, dry, lots of prickly plants, and loads of turquoise. That's the one. Know it? We've been introduced. She sat back on her couch, tucking her feet up. Barely. Great, he said, and he sounded as though he really meant it. You feel like escaping? Erica chuckled, making a face he wouldn't see. Okay, I do that like all the time. I'm on the phone, I'm all like, okay, yeah. So I totally do that. See, I am seriously Erica. And yeah, anyway, moving on. Great, okay, great. You feel like escaping? Erica chuckled, making a face he wouldn't see. I thought I did escape. Isn't that what I'm doing here? And what are you doing here? Escaping winter, right? Hey, I like winter, Sawyer protested. I was fine with winter. Just makes it tough to play baseball, that's all. Ah, Erica replied, nodding to herself. That old thing. How is she? Letting you take her home yet? She heard a car door slam and some keys jingle. Sure is. Haven't met her parents yet, though. Bit nervous about that one. You'll be fine, I'm sure. She shook her head, laughing. How are you? Training okay? Great, actually. Arm is feeling good. Getting some good reps, and Sarge just put me in for the opener against Philly. Nothing like starting things off for making an impression. That's fantastic, Sawyer. I'll have to come see it. Keys jingled again. I have your season tickets in my hands as we speak. Back to my question. You want to escape? Erica sat up, heart pounding. And do what? As long as you are... Okay, back to Sawyer. How long since you've had Amazing Mexican, he asked, and she could hear the smile in his voice. 2 days, she recited without shame. I hit up a local place my first night in. Good girl. Meet me at this place called Quesadilla? Okay, excuse me if I said that wrong, Rebecca. Sorry. It's in Tempe. I'll send you the address. The fajitas are legit. Erica rolled her eyes with a snort. Don't say legit. You sound like my brother. Sawyer laughed, making her smile again. Fair enough. It's very, very good. You coming? Give me 20 minutes, she told him as she pushed off the couch. I'm in sweats. So am I, he told her. Come as you are. She looked at the phone as if he were crazy, then put it back to her ear. No way. 20. 15, he insisted. I'm starving. Erica sighed in exasperation. There goes the makeup. Thanks, Sawyer. You don't need it anyway. Oh, he's such an awesome guy. Get going. See you soon. He hung up before she could respond, and she just looked at her phone for a moment, completely bewildered. What in the world was this? Was she really meeting up with her favorite ex for Mexican on a whim? They were less than half an hour from each other, and she had just gotten here. This could set a precedent. Did she want that? She stood there in her sweats, chewing her lip for a long moment. Then she bolted for her room, yanking off her shirt and rummaging in her barely put-together closet for something she could stand to be seen in. 16 minutes later, she was walking into the restaurant at a brisk pace, slightly out of breath, and she was ashamed to admit a little sweaty. See, she's like my sister. Dark shirts were a blessing in times like these. She looked moderately cute, though Meg would have shrieked about her having black and brown in the same outfit. Considering she had almost no time to get ready, and she had managed to get some basic makeup on and didn't look as though she was homeless, Erica was calling this a win. She hadn't even seen Sawyer yet, and it was a win. So far. The interior of the restaurant was brightly covered with murals on each wall, sombreros and desert paraphernalia hanging there, here and there, and festive mariachi music, hopefully I said that right, playing over the speakers. There were a few guests in this place, and she scanned quickly for any overly attractive baseball players that might be hanging out in the vicinity. It took a minute, but then she found one. Just one. He was poring over the menu, not looking at her, and for some reason, that was perfect. That was the Sawyer she remembered. She smiled at the hostess and told her she saw her party, and she headed toward the table. Sawyer looked up as he approached and broke into a wide grin that made her cheeks heat. He got up quickly, his snug black racer's t-shirt riding up just a little as he moved out of the booth, and he dampened his hair looked darker than its usual sandy color. He opened his arms wide. Erica! Gosh, he was good looking. She shook the errant thought away and smiled back. Hey, stranger. She moved into his embrace, taking a moment to appreciate the fantastic smell of freshly showered man. He pulled back, and she saw the faint edges of peeling sunburn on his nose and the outline of eye black on his cheeks. You hungry? He asked, stooping a little to look her in the eye. Erica hefted her purse strap more securely on her shoulder. Starving. Did you say me needs chips and salsa? Okay. Totally me. He gestured in the table where a mostly full basket of chips sat next to 2 small dishes of salsa. I did. It wasn't easy, but I managed to restrain myself. I don't care how good looking the guy is, but I need chips and salsa at the Mexican restaurant. So yeah. She gave him a dubious look as he moved into the booth. My hero. She picked up a menu, scanning it quickly. You decided on anything yet? Fajitas, he said simply as he sat back down, folding his hands on the table, and a burrito combo. Eric looked at him over the menu. Don't they feed you on your team? Not Mexican, he shot back. His attention shifted to just behind her, then he grinned. Also, I ordered drinks for us. Oh yeah? What am I drinking today? She asked without looking up. Sawyer grunted once. Same as always. Diet Coke with a lime wedge, water with lemon, both with minimal ice. Slowly, Erica peeked over the top of the menu at him, unable to completely hide her shock. He smiled easily. You're very specific, Erica. Not hard to remember. Oh, that was true, she supposed, but... Okay, she said slowly, folding the menu and setting it aside. Let's try something harder. Order for me. His eyes narrowed, but he inclined his head. If you insist. As if on cue, the waiter appeared with their drinks, setting them down. Then he pulled out a notepad. Can I get you some appetizers, or are you ready to order your meal? I'll have the steak fajitas, Sawyer told him with a crooked smile, and the 2 burrito combo with queso. Got it. And for you, ma'am? He asked, looking at Erica expectantly. Erica gestured to Sawyer, then folded her arms. Sawyer sat up straighter and pulled the menu back out. She will have the green chili enchiladas with pork, and how about a side of guac for the chips? The waiter looked at Erica for confirmation, and she nodded, smiling reluctantly. He nailed it. Sawyer pumped his fist, making her roll her eyes. The waiter laughed and moved away. Erica shook her head. How did you know? Sawyer shrugged. Lucky guess. I figured it was either that or the chimichangas, and you wouldn't have been upset with either. True enough, she admitted. She smiled at him and took a chance. You look good, Sawyer. He raised a brow. Better than in Belltown? Well, you're just getting a tan, she pointed out. Then she gestured to her chin. And this is gone, which is nice. He rubbed his jaw. I kind of miss it, but it's just hot down here. Fun but hot. Speaking of, he reached into his back pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding across the table to her. Tickets. Erica took the envelope and looked inside, several tickets within. She looked up at Sawyer. Is there one for every game in here? Sawyer nodded. Wasn't sure what your schedule was. Come when you can, if you want. She did. She very much did. She tucked the tickets in her purse, her smile beginning to make her cheeks ache. Thanks, Sawyer. Seems the least I can do, he told her, rubbing at his upper arm. Considering I just found out you're teaching one of my online classes. What? She cried, laughing at his sheepish expression. Seriously? He nodded. Museums and culture, with Erica Moore as my instructor. What are the odds, right? Erica took a chip and scooped it into the salsa. This isn't going to get you a better grade, you know. I know, he replied, taking a chip himself, but it doesn't hurt either. He winked, then laughed as he popped the chip into his mouth. She shook her head, eating her own chip. What are the odds, she murmured, repeating his words. About the same as you and me winding up in Arizona at the same time, within 50 miles of each other? He quirked his brows, grinning again. Meant to be, teach, just enjoy it. Uh-huh, she replied before smacking his hand away from the chip she wanted, making him laugh. I better enjoy this food, too. Sawyer grinned, reaching for a different chip. You will. You'll enjoy both, I promise. Erica returned his smile. I think I will. So chapter 4, more interaction with Sawyer and Erica. Things are going to start moving forward. So anyway, this has been great, and I hope you survived my a little bit of stuttering and awkward wording. This is why I'm a writer and I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a singer. And writing is awesome because you could just edit. You can't do that when you speak. So see y'all later.